Welcome back to the Gunners Club. You're here with Gunner, of course with Seuss. We've just come back from lunch and we're enjoying a lamo drink. The eternal question, right? We're in the Gunners Club. We're talking manly things. The smell of engine oil pervades. We'll clean up the driveway after. What's better, European vehicles or Asian vehicles? Now, I know firmly where I stand. It's along the German line. And yourself, Seuss, you have enjoyed quite a few Asian vehicles. I said vehicles, but I didn't say enjoyed.
Well, not just vehicles.
But also a few, I would say, lesser contenders amongst the old General Motors Holden stuff, some of the indigenous vehicles that we used to have. You had a Commodore, General Motors Holden Commodore with the old Buick.
That was
engine.
a V6 motor, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I got a million Ks out of that. And that was running predominantly on LPG. So that wasn't bad. Didn't mind that.
Staggering. You've had a few other old Australian cars. I think you had an old Falcon as well.
Oh, an XT Falcon,
Yeah,
that's right.
that's going back quite some period.
That, my God, that was such a luxurious car to drive in its day. It wasn't a Fairlane or anything like that, so it wasn't a top of the line. But it had these bucket seats in them that you sank into.
Gosh, now you probably can't remember when they last advertised it being a feature that you have bucket seats.
Yeah,
in a
that's
car.
right.
Believe it or not, that's sort of how, I guess, Spartan life was when we were younger and the earth was still warm. But you've really turned to driving and buying Asian vehicles, haven't you?
I have, very much so. Oh, purely on reliability. Unlike those three-pronged suppositories that you drive now.
I'm not sure what the point is you're trying to make.
The point.
So, just for the record, for work you drive a diesel Toyota vehicle,
I do, yes.
and just for recreation and to get around, you've got a... What's the other vehicle you've got?
It's the Isuzu, the D-Max. Well, it's a Japanese car, not made in Japan, made in Thailand, but it's a Japanese car made under license in Thailand.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm sort of very partial. But even before that, I used to have Land Cruisers, which were, they were indestructible. They were just amazing.
Okay, so let's start to take this apart. You're saying to me that you purchase Asian vehicles because they're more reliable.
I believe so.
Okay. All the other Asian vehicles you've had, why then, if they were so good and reliable, did you get rid of them?
I drove them to destruction.
The
I
jaw
drove
dropped.
them to destruction is what I did.
Dropped.
Yeah.
Now, did you notice at the start he boasted that he had a General Motors Holden vehicle, Australian-made General Motors with an offshot of an American engine. They cut off 2 cylinders and made it into a 6-cylinder Buick engine for us for 1 million kilometres. Now he's screaming about the reliability of Asian vehicles. None of the Asian vehicles that you drove made it anywhere close to 1 million kilometres, did they?
The current high ace van I have is at 600k at the moment.
Okay, still an infant. Baby,
Still an
baby
infant.
arms. It's being weaned. Now, I've had some Asian vehicles as well. I must admit, I haven't really had any issues with them. Most recent Asian vehicle which I had was, I bought as demonstrator. It was a Hyundai Sportage.
Okay.
Actually, a pretty good car. Value for money, I think, was incredible. Really had no troubles with it at all, apart from the fact that it was heralded as a sports vehicle. It wasn't really. I say that because there was absolutely no performance in it at all. I did buy the economy version, so I'll give them that. And every time I went up on the roof to fix my kayaks to play sport, I would put a dint in the roof and in the bonnet, which I don't remember the Australian cars dinting like that, or my German vehicle being made like that. So Sportage, maybe just age or arge, or there's certainly no sport in it whatsoever at all.
Yeah. Well, I would very much like to see you put some kayaks on your current German vehicle.
No, that's not what it's about. So I drive a 2-seater open-top vehicle. Have a lot of fun with it. Love German vehicles because, well, for a start, the first company which created the motorised wheeled vehicle was Mercedes-Benz. The first company that created the first automobile with 4 wheels and an engine was Mercedes-Benz. I think the company which is still seen in the highest esteem from the West in China today is again Mercedes-Benz. They basically won't buy the Audis. I think there's problems with the quality of the EVs that they produce, but that's still held in very high regard in the West as well. I think to a large extent that's still the case too.
Well, I can understand that with the Audis being a glorified Volkswagen. So,
Sure.
Yeah,
But then
for
so
sure.
is a Bugatti.
So is a Bugatti.
You got something against a Bugatti?
Not at the moment.
Now, what's this blanket statement you're making? Are you trying to tell me that it's better practice to purchase an Asian car, or they're just better cars? Oh, the jaw dropped again.
Yeah. No. I believe value for money, reliability. Yes, I think those two are primarily the reasons. Can't beat a Japanese car.
Doesn't matter where the Japanese car is made. So, for example, Suzuki is manufactured in Hungary. Is that a Japanese car to you?
Generally speaking, if it's a Japanese car, discounting any impropriety from where they might be made, generally speaking, the Japanese have these standards that wherever they're made, they have to...
basically fulfill the specs.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. So, in actual fact, it doesn't matter where they're made. If it's a Japanese car, they have to adhere to certain standards.
Okay, so you're saying to basically just buy the cheapest Japanese car that you can find, wherever it's made.
Well, if that's what you can afford, yes. But I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say the cheapest Japanese car. Why would you necessarily want to go to the cheapest Japanese car?
Well, it doesn't matter where it's made, so you can.
Well,
you
no,
can
it
stick
doesn't
out
matter.
to wherever it's made.
Yeah, I don't mind where it's made. I mean,
So an Indian-made Suzuki Maruti, you'd be quite happy with that as well.
I didn't know they made
Oh,
Suzukis
see-
in India.
see what happened, the
I
jaw
did
dropped.
not know they
Now,
made Suzukis in India.
when you're buying a European car, and I'm defining a European car as something which is a European mark, which is still made in Europe. It's 104 factories that are still making all this goodness for you, this quality goodness. Okay, don't worry about the width, feel, and quality is what I'm basically saying. Manufactured in 20 different countries, so yes, really you can pick wherever you like. Now, to say blanketly that it's better to buy an Asian car, it basically says that if you're buying that Suzuki Maruti, that will suit you better than a Ferrari. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily at all. This is a goodness
I'm
about...
sorry, when a Ferrari, are we talking luxury?
Well,
as
I don't
in
know.
top-end
I don't know.
luxury cars?
You're defining the segment, but effectively if you're saying that the policy is to buy the cheapest Asian car that you can, well, then I would say perhaps that doesn't stand up if what you're after in your life is something like the pedigree of a Bugatti, of a Ferrari, of an Aston Martin.
Right.
Or something with a little bit of class, for example, like a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley.
I see. Okay. So you're after a badge. So in other words, what you're saying is that what you want to buy is a badge. Or let's say like a luxury handbag, purely for its mark as opposed to its reliability.
Well, I know for a fact that when I do buy things like that,
Yeah.
certainly a European bag rather than an Asian bag. It's sort
Hang on, are we still talking handbags?
yeah, sir, I've got a lady in my life, for sure. I learned how to treat her proper like.
Well, proper like.
It's interesting because certainly in Europe as well, they're manufacturing some Asian vehicles. For example, Toyota is manufactured in Europe.
Yes.
Hyundai is manufactured in Europe as well, you know, with factories in Slovakia, for example. It's kind of interesting. For me, what I love about the German cars is that history, you can trace it back to the original designs of the car, so you have some investment in it. You understand, every young man understands with that steering he feels down below when he sees a Porsche 911 for the first time. And that same similar silhouette of that vehicle is one that his father enjoyed in his flush of youth, and his father's father would have enjoyed that same flush as well. You know, the curves of that vehicle, the mounting of that rear engine, the lowness to the ground. So these are things which you can share, and it's sort of like a birthright to be able to drive a pedigree vehicle, something which is European made, which has its origins in the minds of the inventor. It's not something which is a knockoff or a counterfeit. Look at something, for example, like Kia. Wasn't it funny that about 10 years ago the Kias started to look a lot like the previous generation's Audis? Well, it happened because they took by the ear the designer of Audi, who you just basically said bad things about, Audi, and had him design the next generation there of Kias that came out. But how wonderful to have something which was the original concept and then a lovely refined concept of that from the original creator. It's like, for example, if I listen to, let's say, Spotify, and I'm listening to an album by the Beatles, or I put it on vinyl, because I always go for the real thing, as I do with cars. Compared to putting on AI on YouTube and listening to AI create some sort of backwash music of what apparently AI thinks the Beatles are. Well, that's what I see in a lot of the Asian cars today.
I don't know how we got onto AI from there, but there you go. Reliability, cost of maintenance. How much do you think it would set you back? Well, let's say, I don't know, you're driving down the road and a stone gets thrown up from the vehicle in front of you and hits your headlight. How much do you think that would cost you?
Depends which
European
car you're driving. So, for example, my wife, she drives a Renault.
Yes.
Manufactured in Spain.
Okay.
French marque, manufactured in Spain. With something like a Renault, you only have to service it once per year.
That's pretty good.
With the Hyundai that I had to service it more often than that. In fact, I was servicing it twice as often as the Renault. In terms of the parts, look, it's manufactured in Spain, but it's not overly expensive. Let's not pretend that the labour rates are first world in Spain.
Yeah.
For something like the Mercedes, which I'm driving now, it depends which part of the headlight effectively was destroyed. It could be very expensive. It could be reasonably cheap if it's just a cover. But like I said, the Renault and the Mercedes need to be serviced half as often as the Hyundai that I was driving. That to me says something about the engineering, about the quality of the engineering. And don't forget that there's an aftermarket for everything now as well. If it's something which is not integral to the moving parts of the car, I'm quite happy to get it as an aftermarket. Something like a headlight cover, for example.
That is a whole different market again. I agree with you. But I would suggest it. Okay, here's an example. The Nissan Patrol four-wheel drive, that new one that we were talking about in one of the previous
if you
videos.
want to. Yeah.
Yeah, which is the V8 petrol Nissan Patrol. Now, this is going counter to my argument, but as an example on that particular thing, a wing mirror on one of those things, as an example, if you were to bash that going down a dirt track somewhere, and you know these things happen, or you get a...
It's sort of the point of the vehicle, isn't it? That you're going to take it out.
Well, you don't want to, but in this case, if you were to, that mirror, because it's integral and the way it's designed and it does so many more things these days than they did in the old days when it was just simply a mirror. A mirror like that, to replace it, is now $1,500.
It's staggering, isn't it? I mean, mirror on the wall. There's the argument now that so much technology which goes into cars is no longer proprietary, which means, for example, all of the screen technology, you wouldn't expect Mercedes to have developed it itself, the audio, etc. They'll buy it from the contractors who develop it.
That's right.
And sell it on the open market. So if Blaupunkt and Bosch are creating a stereo system, which is an integration system for your phones, etc., it could be bought by Suzuki as easily as it could be bought by the Daimler Group.
Yeah, that's right.
Say. So I'm trying to think to myself really how, to me, that affects the soul of the vehicle. Here's my money's worth. I think it does actually affect the soul of a vehicle. I think it does because you're losing the feel of being a purist and driving the car. Now, you've been in my car. It's recently modern, but it's not absolutely cutting edge modern, which means that it doesn't have the full integration you'd expect today. It's more about the way that it feels itself on the road. So what that means...
So it's an emotional attachment rather than an objective overview of how it's financial burden on you.
Certainly for me, it's an emotional feeling.
Yep.
Absolutely it is. It's something where I feel my body in tune with the car, probably because I'm so low to the ground.
Yep.
I mean, this thing is really quite low.
It's a sports car.
It is
That's what it
essentially a
is.
two-seater sports car, and you can really feel the
roadster,
solidity of it is a roadster, the solidity of the build, and your heart does get racing when you're driving it, particularly in sports mode.
Yeah.
And what's my greying hair, you feel the wind go through it. It's really quite a fantastic feeling. But I think with the cars today, where you don't have that feeling of the solidity, even if it's made in Germany, and you've got the wraparound screens, etc., which are basically blanketing you from the feeling of the road and being part of the voyage, which is what you're part of. That's what you're doing it. That's why you're buying it. Then I can see that the difference is that, well, maybe I would settle for something Asian. When I bought this European car, I test drove a brand new state-of-the-art. It had the heads-up technology, all that sort of stuff. It was an Hyundai Sonata. Very nice vehicle, comparable sort of power. I mean, the thing really did go with some speed. Didn't have that feeling, and that's really what I think the European marques are still delivering, but I think technology is going to shave that from them.
Unfortunately, your passion driving you to these European marques is being undermined greatly by their own greed. For example, in my job that I do as a courier, I'm on the road all day, every day.
Yeah.
I thought I would never see something that I ended up seeing on the road. A Maserati hatchback. A hatchback. A Maserati hatchback. And I thought, my God, how to ruin a marque. I thought, there's no way this could be topped. And then I saw a Bentley hatchback. I thought, you got to be kidding me, don't you? A Bentley hatchback. The only reason they're doing this is to cash in on the market because everyone wants a hatchback these days. So how to ruin a marque? What used to be an exclusive marque that you can only aspire to, and now it's an everyman's car.
I would argue that a Bentley still very much is, although a lot of them are manufactured in France instead of England, and certainly changed ownership as well. With the Maserati, I mean, the main difference between a Maserati and a Ferrari, apart from the cost, is that most Ferrari owners actually own their Ferrari. Most Maseratis are purchased on lease or finance, which is another key difference about it. Maserati, though, has been part of the Stellantis American group. Maybe it's not so European after all anymore. And it's one of those marques that they think that ultimately might be sold by the Chrysler Stellantis group as well. But some of those feelings that I had growing up, you know, if a friend, father for example, and this was a true story, bought him, and he was in final year of school, he was over the age of 18, which was rare, but you were able to be 18 and do your final year. So his father bought him a used Alfa Romeo. My gosh, wasn't this guy the kingpin? So there he was driving around and showing all the lads, and I was 17, not able to drive in Australia, showing all the lads at school that, look, what my father bought me, I've got this, and wow, my mouth was agape. So anyway, the time came, and he pulled up at the corner, and I stepped in, and I didn't realise I'd stood in dog shit just before stepping into the car. A lot of people would say that that's a good picture as to what that marque has become today.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Wonder what your passions are out there. I certainly love driving Mercedes-Benz. It's not a new one. I lived in Stuttgart for a while, so I feel some sort of kinship and still have family there in Stuttgart. In terms of repairs and things like that, the way that I try to get around it has been part of a local car club for Mercedes. So that's a way of dipping my toe into the community of people who know where to source parts and get it done for a better price.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
But I certainly agree with Seuss here that the experiences I had with Asian cars in Australia were mostly very, very good. The fact you've got great dealer networks in Australia for Australian cars, the volume is here. Geographically, I guess we're centred in Asia as well.
Yep.
No matter how we like to look at ourselves, that's the reality of where we're at. And they just keep making better cars.
But their resale value is also up there too. I mean, don't forget that 75% of your car market is used cars.
Yep.
And you've driven around for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, and you want to trade it in for your next either new car or an updated used car.
Yep.
You're still going to get some money back on it.
Yeah, it's funny how Toyota seem to think that their vehicles are so great and that they hold their price so well. But when you go to trade a Toyota in at the Toyota dealership, suddenly the price just doesn't hold of the vehicle that you're trading in.
Well, of course not, because, so that's why you sell it on the open market.
That's right, that's what you do. That's what
You never get sucked into a dealership arrangement. Same as you never go to a dealership to get it serviced.
And what about finance?
There is that. Finance is a whole different video.
Thanks for joining us. Join us for more adventures. We've got other ones which are a little bit less hearted, where we really get stuck into things like economics, politics, and into society as well. Have a look at our back catalogue. There's bound to be one that you will like.
I'm sure there is. And if you do, give us a like and a subscribe.
See you soon.
Give us some comments below. Catch ya.